Welcome
to Film Shapes,
the podcast.
First man to walk on the moon. That'd be something.
Hi, everybody. This is Film Shapes. Today I'm here with Roly.
Hello.
And Brett. Hi, Brett.
Hello.
This is your debut, isn't it?
Yes.
Nice to see you. We're going to talk about First Man. It's Damien Chazelle's third film after Whiplash and La La Land. And this follows about 8 years of Neil Armstrong's life up to the moon landing in July 1969. Kind of mixes his work and home life, I reckon, into a kind of docu-biopic. There's a new genre for you, I suppose. Yeah. Thoughts, guys? What do you think?
It was all right.
Yeah.
We actually just saw it. Brett and I saw it last night. So it's pretty fresh.
Yeah, okay.
I think you came out buzzing a little more on it than I was.
Yeah, I had low expectations, I guess. I was just worried about the apple pie and the sugar that sometimes gets laid on these. But I really enjoyed it. And the one criteria that I was really interested in, like being a bit of a space nerd, was do they show Neil Armstrong, the pilot? Because, everyone knows he was the first man on the moon, but I've always thought he was the best pilot in the world at that time, and he doesn't get enough credit for that, and I thought they really
You're making
covered that
yourself
well.
sound really old there. At the time, I thought he was the best pilot in the world. But that was the first scene. He was in the X-15, is it? Where he gets dropped out of the off the other plane, and then they use the is it a ramjet that they used at that time? The other jet that
There's an
sparks,
actual thing called a ramjet.
and he hits the outer atmosphere, and actually he left the atmosphere for a short while. Bounces off.
That was
and,
very
that was actually factual.
That's right. Okay.
What about the factuality versus the fictionalization factor? Was there enough?
I've got to put my hands up. I got no idea about the whole lunar escapades.
Yeah,
really.
okay.
I know
All
some dates and that's about it. But yeah, so for me, it's all authentic, or not.
Well,
bugger if I know. Yeah.
I think it was largely authentic. What did you think, Brett, of the making of the capsules and things like that?
Brilliant.
That level,
Brilliant. And again, sort of going in a bit hesitant, worried that they're going to keep it factual. And again, I really was hoping that they'd show him as the pilot that he was, because he was. That's why he got picked, and he had a bunch of bingles, the opening scene, and there was a couple of other test pilot. He really got himself out of trouble. So they really covered that, and I thought that was really good. I mean, the Agena episode where in the Gemini mission they covered
where
that
the
well.
spaceship is spinning out of control when it's docked to another spaceship.
That was quite freaky. Wasn't
Yeah,
it?
and that was very
Do you think
factual, I think.
I'm going to be a bit picky on that. So, that scene was great. Like the sound design, visually, it was epic, and you were really full of stress in the moment with it.
Yeah.
But was it a little bit exaggerated on the spinning speed there?
No.
Because when they came back down, someone said, "Oh, you were spinning once a second," but when you were looking at when he was looking out the window at some points, the Earth was just going. It would have been like 5 times a second or something.
Oh, okay.
And the whole amount of spin seemed to be like more than any human being could handle, But at the end of the day, they've got to make a movie, and they've got to make it look.
Yeah. That could be artistic license, couldn't it?
Yeah, and so there's little things like that which I think they did definitely ham up a little bit, not to downplay the stress that those men would have been under, and getting out of that, but
well,
little things like that, I'm not sure.
They were spinning close, or even a bit more than once a second at the. It was quite incredible, and that he was the only guy on the planet probably that could think to get out of that the main control and put it into re-entry mode, which allowed him to sort of bring it back. So that was pretty close. That was pretty, I think, legit, but there was a little fuel light on the actual when they were landing on the moon, there was this red blinking light. That was completely fabricated.
So that was another thing I was going to mention. That, I mean, I've seen the actual footage of that moon landing, and the speed in the actual footage appears to be a lot slower. It looks a lot less dangerous in the real footage.
I
don't remember that big crater being that they had to skip over in the real footage, but there's craters all over the moon.
That seemed
obviously, but
that seemed very, very designed for the film.
And
all its attention.
The
let's
way
build
they were
attention.
running out of of fuel and
of course,
things.
it's a countdown. Come on.
But I think, do you need to do that in a film like this? Do you
would
need
hope
those
not,
extra little bits of tension when you know that everyone knows the ending?
I think that lunar landing, there's enough drama and incredibleness to it. Yeah. And he did actually, I mean, there was a computer fault when they were coming down, a couple of computer faults, and then also they realised they were way ahead of where they were supposed to land, and Armstrong had to take manual control, and he put it down. And they did. You can hear it, like he says, 30 seconds, and they were down with about 30 seconds of fuel left to give them enough to get to abort.
It's pretty accurate then.
But it was like this.
Well, the
red
light said 3 seconds.
There was no red.
Okay.
Everything else was like the computer and everything was all very legit. The inside the capsules, but why? I mean, it was dramatic enough.
I think this is the problem with this film for me a little bit is, they're making a historical document that needs to be not document, but it needs to be quite accurate.
Yeah.
It's bio, but
But
the people they're making it about are actually by necessity quite boring, stoic people.
Yeah.
And, even though what they did was amazing, I felt like this film sort of was trying to squeeze the drama out of every little thing that happened rather than just tell the story as it was.
But that's, partly it was almost a procedural film with the documenting everything.
Yeah,
these are the switches and these are the...
by numbers. We've got the story, we know what we need to say.
That may have been even more interesting than adding in the family life and the tragedy you have to do that. You have to cover that,
what did you think of that? What did you think of using that central theme of his daughter and the going back in the memory and crossing that with the moon landing stuff?
It was a little bit moving at the end, I thought, but is that also... Did he throw a little bracelet onto the moon? Is this a fact?
It's not. No, it's not a fact.
There's a massive spoiler for you.
It's a... But it's possible. There was some conjecture around it, but...
Okay. And he did have... I think he walked off for 10 minutes on his own without any radio contact and went to a crater. And he does suggest that he did bring something. And it was quite common, I think, for astronauts to bring little personal bits and bobs. So
that's all I need. Yeah, that's fine, yeah. You had to have something, I think, to show this guy's obsession, I think. Like Chazelle does this with pretty much all his films. It's a dude's obsession with something, right? Whiplash. He gets rid of everything else except
Whiplash.
That's great. Incredible. Yeah, that's a fantastic film.
Brett? That's
definitely
great. A musician film.
Yeah, but even La La Land, which was
I haven't seen that one.
I mean, that's a guy's obsession to become a jazz musician as well. So it's the obsession of the male in this case, in all three cases, really. So maybe they had to give him some reason, like he wanted to find some, as the Americans say, closure to to that tragedy.
It is a big deal. I mean, he lost that daughter right in the midst of being an astronaut.
Well, actually, another one where they maybe got changed the times around at that X-15 flight apparently happened after his daughter died.
Really? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh, that doesn't matter. That's not. Not
I don't think it matters, but
he also had a couple of test pilot bingles around that time, like a bunch of them. And I thought they would have went with the Chuck Yeager incident. They were involved in a pretty hairy sort of crash landing, and conjecture that they might have had a bit of beef. And him being a civilian engineer pilot, some of the more pure pilots like Yeager sort of would look down their nose at they don't fly by feel, they fly by sort of mass, There was always a bit of that within the test pilots, and he was the first civilian.
That's the thing. You're making a film about engineers and maths guys. How do you make that more interesting?
Yeah.
send them to the moon, I guess.
Chuck Yeager was part of the film The Right Stuff, wasn't he? Yeah, I haven't seen that, but he was involved in that, and a couple of the other characters from this were in that as well.
There was definite crossover from Grissom, who died in Apollo 1. He was a Mercury astronaut.
Okay. I was a little disappointed that we didn't get to see the lemon hanging on the module on the capsule. Was it at Grisham?
A lemon?
Gus? So apparently he actually at one point he wasn't happy with the way the program was running and didn't have a lot of faith in it. This is before he died, obviously, and he'd hung a lemon on the door of the
as in this is a lemon
capsule. Yeah, and soon after, you know that story.
Well, was that Gus? That goes back to the Mercury mission where they had a big fight with the engineers because there was no controls at all in the Mercury, and they were fighting to have some
controls.
No, they were virtually just like
a falling rock,
a monkey in the
shit.
So they had to fight to sort of get some,
Right.
But I mean, Mercury. I mean, that's as a space nerd, that's what I've really loved, and I wish they would have just shown even a little bit of Mercury. But that was one guy in a capsule. No one had ever done it before. I mean, that was...
Was that... How long ago was that? Well, how long before the beginning of this film? Was it in the 50s or something?
No, it was early 60s. So you had Mercury, then Gemini, then Apollo. So Mercury was the first guys up into space. And, 3 out of 4 of that Redstone rocket had not got off the launch pad prior to Alan Shepard. So they were really... Wow. It was like being in a tractor cockpit. You know, you look at the footage of really... Yeah.
How did you find Gosling's performance?
It's a good question. I'm torn on this guy. I think in some films he can be great, like in the Nice Guys and in Blade Runner 2049. I think he suited those roles really well. Isn't
this a similar role to his Blade Runner android role in a way?
Is he a sleepwalker? Is that what you're asking? I don't know. Maybe he's just playing it restrained like the real Neil. Who knows?
I think he is. I think he did a good job of it, actually.
Yeah. He can be funny, but this isn't the kind of film.
There's that quite long scene where he breaks down about his daughter. And the scene actually it went on a little bit long for me, but it was He cries on cue.
Sure,
he does a good job there.
Yep. I think his wife played it pretty well. Like she was always on the verge of cracking, I think. But she's. She only did it really once or twice.
Is there something that actors spray in their eyes, do you think, to get that shiny eyes, I'm about to cry look? I've got a feeling that there must be a trick to it.
Well, I remember once, years ago, you had to cry for a film.
Was this in one of my... the beginning and the end of my acting career?
Did you use anything in that?
Did I have to cry?
Yeah, you had to cry.
I remember I had to die.
Yes, it was around that time.
That's what I usually do, die.
Yeah. No, I don't know. If they're really good at it, they won't have to.
What about what about Buzz Aldrin's
I was going to ask about him,
because he's the guy that actually makes the film a bit more interesting for me, because
he's the stooge,
he's louder,
isn't he?
He's a big mouth guy. Whatever you may think of Buzz Aldrin in real life,
I don't know what he's like. It seems like they didn't like him, the filmmakers.
Did you see him punch that guy?
What?
He was on the street. He got accosted by a moon conspiracy guy, and he said,
"Yeah,
you should be ashamed of yourself, Buzz Aldrin."
Oh,
well, he got set up.
He didn't land on the moon.
He got totally set up, and he was with his granddaughter.
Yeah,
and this guy's on the premise of doing a Japanese kids show.
Oh, okay.
This guy, this moon conspiracy guy, just accosted him and pushed a Bible into his chest, and Buzz cracked him on the jaw.
Swear on the Bible that you landed on the moon, and he wouldn't do it. And he's just saying, "Leave me alone, leave me alone." The guy kept hassling him.
Yeah,
and
pushed him in the chest.
80-year-old man.
80, nice. Oh, okay. Well,
gets him one. Good
cracked
one.
him. Yeah, dropped him.
Yeah, I fine.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of that,
Okay.
I mean, he's one of the more
in the character,
larger, had sort of shown a bit of character more than some of those, because the very nature of the beast is that they're very clinical, calculating characters. So Buzz, was a bit glug in the 70s.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay. Well, did Armstrong get along with him?
I think that's been talked up. I think that I mean, in that situation, they're so pro. They're just going to get the job done.
Yeah.
You know, they're not going to be bickering over who left their astronaut socks out.
The smelly
or,
astronaut socks in the capsule.
Yeah.
Just a question here on the performance of this film. I'd say it's tanked at the box office.
Really?
Okay.
It's only so far made 93 million, and the budget was 59. That's a loss if you add up all the. You have to make 2.5 times your money back. That's a bit of a loss. Whiplash made 49 million from 3 million. That's a superb return. And La La Land 445 from about 30 million. So he's had success up until now. This is a failure.
I feel
commercially,
like maybe the people that are interested in this story already know the story, and maybe it's not quite bringing in, the millennials or people, which is a shame. I think probably if you knew nothing about the landing, this would be a good film to see.
It's almost a sort of document of history, isn't it? It's I mean, it's the biggest known story pretty much ever, isn't it? In modern history.
Truthfully, if you want a document, you're probably better off watching a documentary, though, aren't you?
Well,
or one of the mini documentaries out there that.
But people wouldn't see that if they see Gozzles in it. They might go, "Oh, I like Gozzle. Let's go and see this."
Shady, what did you describe it before? A new genre,
docu-biopic, I think.
Well, I think it does do a good job for a big Hollywood film of showing like the facts and documenting what that landing.
Yeah, and marrying it with the private life, the tragedy he's gone through in his family life, and all that. Like, what's that dude? The guy who lived across the road from him, the Australian actor, Jason Clarke.
Oh yeah.
At his death, how that affected people around as well. So I think on Earth, it was kind of quite emotional. In the sky, it was kind of staid and very, very perfunctory, I suppose. Do this, push this button, make sure we get out of the spin, that kind of stuff. So, a good balance, I think. But people didn't want that, really.
And I was wondering why it hasn't been made since, but Clint Eastwood had the script since the early 2000s and sort of sat on it.
That's interesting. I heard a guy, he's a football podcast host, but he does a movie podcast, James Richardson. He said this film could almost have been made by Clint Eastwood because of the mawkishness and that. He didn't find that too appealing. But, that's interesting.
What was the beef about the flag? What was going on?
I don't know. Go on.
I don't know. Well, I'm asking. I don't know.
Brett?
There was someone complaining that there was no flag. There wasn't enough flag going on.
I thought that's what you brought up.
I
hadn't heard it.
I just briefly glimpsed something about this. Like maybe there wasn't enough of the flag. Yeah, I mean we saw them planted, didn't we? Did we even see that?
No, we didn't need to, but we saw the flag. That's
the flag was
That's
there.
Enough.
Right? Yeah. Maybe there are some very patriotic Americans who wanted to see that stars and stripes being punched into the earth, into the moon's.
Oh, and the rest of us are just glad that we didn't see that.
Make the moon great again.
Make the moon great.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
I wonder what the Don thought of this film.
The Don Bradman? What are you talking about? Oh, God. Fucking hell. I'm going for the Don Bradman or maybe Don Corleone before you mention that fucker.
Good. That's probably a good thing.
Right.
So Brett, was it one small step for man or one small step for a man?
Well, there's a lot of where's that missing A?
And I think missing A. I think there was a bit of a one small step for a man.
Oh, you think
he said? Well, think about it. It would make sense to say one small step for a man.
Yeah, not as poetic sounding.
Whereas, it is one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind, as opposed to one small step for man. I think was he quoted as saying at some point that he said he meant to say a man, but there was either a radio glitch or he stuffed it up a bit and didn't want to go back. Right.
Do you think he rehearsed that line? Or was he just, whoa, look at this, I'm going to say something quite prophetic?
I think he would have rehearsed it in his head, definitely. But
did he have a writer?
Did he stand in front of a mirror and do it?
Did someone write it for him, do you think?
And slightly overwhelming moment.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I think I would have just gone, shit!
But when you're that guy, you've been trained to to just be cool about everything. Really.
Yeah, very cool.
I thought it was nice that they brought in that the alternative speech that the president was meant to give as well.
Yeah.
Because that's a really interesting little piece of text when you go to that and find that they actually had a whole plan for what they were going to tell the public if the landing wasn't successful.
And the wife saying to him, "You have to go and talk to your boys. You were just going to run off." Yeah, that was kind of a little nice moment there.
Yeah, and I think we could all probably relate to that sort of 60s, 70s parenting. Not so hands-on back in that day. Really.
Carpet, curtains,
Yes, yeah.
When your neighbour would bring you cookies.
Oh, I didn't have neighbours.
Your neighbour?
I was in the bush.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. I thought it was shot quite lovely. It was almost like a little bit of sepia sort of across. Everything looked a little... Was that just me, or do you think they might have just... The earth shots in the houses and just looked...
Yeah.
It had a
the
nice...
design was good, yeah.
It was great design, great,
Mm.
nicely graded, and the sound design.
That was
really
good too.
Fantastic. I mean, we were sitting in fairly minimal 2.1 Dolby probably. It wasn't surround sound, I don't think, the way we experienced it, but it was really solid.
There's
it was great.
and Armstrong
and the music as well.
Yeah,
The original
Armstrong
score.
himself, he likes the theremin, something about the moon sounds or something. Did you hear about this?
Oh, no,
so
I didn't know.
he had a cassette that he brought along that he could that's that weird.
Yeah, because I noticed that. That was part of what I liked about the soundtrack, was some of those weirdo theremin sounds that were coming in.
Didn't the guy from... Who's the lead singer of Prawns with Horns? Remember him?
Marty Prawn.
Yeah, Marty Prawn. Didn't he use that once at a gig?
Certainly did.
That would be well within the
Fantastic.
realms of possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
so, I mean, any closing thoughts?
Well, I was I should have been overwhelmed by this, but I was a little underwhelmed. But I think it's just not the right film for me. I'm not a space nerd as much as Brett here. So
yeah, I enjoyed the subject matter more than the film, but it was an okay film.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Yeah.
As I said, my one, will they show Neil Armstrong to be the pilot that he was? And they did. And there was, the claustrophobia. You're getting strapped into that rocket, and there was moments there that you were really like, holy crap. These guys were very
intense.
brave men, and going into really the unknown, I thought they copped that, and a lot of that space flight and the capsule stuff, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think Chazelle's the right director for that building tension stuff, and that worked well, I think. Yeah, cool. Well, that's about it, I reckon.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
What's next?
What's next? Probably Bohemian Rhapsody, I reckon.
Have a crack at that one.
Let's try it. Okay, thanks very much, Brett, for coming along today.
A pleasure. Thank you, gentlemen.
No worries. Bye, guys.
See you later.
Here we go.
6, 5, 4, 3,